Allah says in the Quran, the famous verse which all of us know, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وقضى ربك ألا تعبدوا إلا إياه وبالوالدين إحسانا إما يبلغن عندك الكبر أحدهما أو كلاهما فلا تقل لهما أف ولا تنهرهما وقل لهما قولا كريما واخفض لهما جناح الذل من الرحمة وقل رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. Allah says in Surah Al-Isra, Surah number 17, verse 23, your Lord has decreed, do not worship any but Him. Be good to your parents, and should both or any of them attain old age with you, do not say to them even the word uff. Neither speak to them rudely, but speak to them with respect. And be humble and tender towards them and say, Lord, show mercy to them as they nurtured me when I was a small child. So the first thing we understand, my brothers and sisters, is to remember why Allah has put so much emphasis on the niceness and kindness and respect to our parents. I think you already saw in this verse what it means. Oh Allah, give them mercy as they raised me when I was a little child. When you were a baby and your mother carried you for 9 months, the pain and the agony that she went through, agony upon agony, is one for your life. The second one is when she went into labor, agony upon agony and pain twice. And then she had to breastfeed you and heal from her labor. And some mothers would have breastfed their children for 2 whole years. Her nourishment and everything about herself, it was all about you. When you were a baby that time, you had no strength. You were only weak. And your parents showed you mercy, and they would rather give their life for you instead of their own. And your father was there for you to make sure that you are protected and secure until you grew, so that you can become slightly independent. Then as a child, you were still dependent on your children, on your parents, until you became a teenager. And then suddenly the strength comes in, your mind comes in, your independence comes in, and now you want to be your own person. But with that comes the respect and the kindness to our parents until our death. Their right is so much that even after their death, we still owe them 5 rights. Number 1, to make dua for them. Number 2, to ask Allah to forgive them. Number 3, to connect the family ties that are connected because of them, like your uncles, your aunts. Number 4, to carry out the bequest. If they left a bequest behind to do something, you carry out what we call their bequest. And 5th is to be considerate to the friends that they used to have. These are the general rights. And at the same time, brothers and sisters, I don't want you to mix up between obeying your parents in everything and allowing, and the right of your parents to control everything in your life, and between being kind, respectful, and dutiful to them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions be kind and respectful to them, and serve them and be there for them for all their needs. But of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He put boundaries to that too. You have your rights and they have their rights. It is a big test to raise children, and it is a huge test to also look after your parents. Parents are a test for their children, and children are a test for their parents. My dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then tells us in another verse, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ووصينا الإنسان بوالديه حملته أمه وهنا على وهن وفصاله في عامين أن اشكر لي ولوالديك إلي المصير وإن جاهداك على أن تشرك بي ما ليس لك به علم فلا تطعهما وصاحبهما في الدنيا معروفا واتبع سبيل من أناب إلي ثم إلي مرجعكم فأنبئكم بما كنتم تعملون. Surah number 31 verse 14, Allah says, "We enjoined upon man to be dutiful to his parents. His mother bare him in weakness upon weakness, and his weaning lasted 2 years. We therefore enjoined upon him, give thanks to me and to your parents. To me is your ultimate return. But if they press you and pressure you and try to force you to associate partners with Allah, then do not obey them, and yet treat them well in this world and follow the way of him to turn to me in devotion. Eventually it is to me that all of you shall return, and I shall then tell you all that you did." Some young people say to me, my parents mistreat me. Do I continue to show them that kindness? They don't deserve it. Some young people say it not knowing what they're saying really. They're saying they don't deserve it maybe from their perspective. So for example, some young people might say, well, if my parents go along this way, that means I'm happy with them. But if they don't go along that way, for example, you want something and it doesn't go your way, then suddenly we might think that our parents are bad to us. So please be careful and analyze and think. Are they really being bad to you? Or are you just being a person who is thinking more about your needs and forgetting their needs? Number two, there are parents who are truly oppressive and they are horrible to their children. They exist and we hear about them night and day. Some of them use this verse like a guillotine and a sword on their children, as if to say that I own you and everything about you and I get to control everything about you. Some of them use dua and say, if you don't do this or if that happens and I'm not happy with you, I beseech Allah to be angry with you till the end of time. Some of them use that as a weapon. And some of them do go further into even more horrendous situations. But they are, my dear brothers and sisters, the exceptions. The normal norm of parents is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, even if you disagree with them, even if they tell you to do something that's, harsh and hard, even if sometimes you don't have to obey them, here's the thing. You always have to be respectful to them. Like no matter what. Some say, well, they're not respectful to me. I say, your parents have a special place. Even if they are disrespectful to their own children, you don't do the same. You need to break that cycle and not be that same person, because one day when you have children and they watch you the way that you treat your parents, they're going to treat you the same way you treated their grandparents. Mark my words. You need to break that cycle and know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given both your parents and you a guidance and a path. And look at this verse, what it's saying. Allah is saying to you, all of you are going to return to me. And Allah is saying, I am going to question both your parents and I'm going to question the children. Each one, did you fulfill the duty and did you look after the trust which I gave you? Oh parents, did you look after those children that I gave you temporarily? They're mine. Allah is saying they're mine. You don't own them. I gave them to you as a trust, as a gift, and I gave you authority over them to a certain degree for a purpose, to raise them, to look after them, to teach them, to educate them, to teach them about Allah, to leave a beautiful generation behind. And if you do so, I will make them an intercessor for you on the Day of Judgment, and because of them you will enter paradise. Or did you not fulfill that trust? Did you break it? Did you abuse your rights? Did you use the verses of the Quran? Same with the children. How did you treat your parents? Allah is going to say, I made them get weaker and older, and you saw that before your eyes. They got sick, they got older, they got feeble, you got stronger, you became more independent. And what did you do with that strength? Did you abuse it? Did you mistreat them? Or did you fulfill how I commanded you? Don't you think, brothers and sisters, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't know that there are families who go through struggles and that there are harsh parents and harsh children and all of that? Yet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala still says to you, وَصَاحِبْهُمَا فِي الدُّنْيَا مَعْرُوفًا.